Welcome back, everyone, to another Eat Speak podcast, the most delicious podcast in the Metroplex. I'm Bud Kennedy.
And Steve Wilson.
Our guest this week, I guess the way to everyone's heart in Texas for Valentine's Day is with brisket. And so we have the barbecue snob, the BBQ editor of Texas Monthly Magazine. Welcome, Daniel Vaughn, back to the Eat Speak podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I certainly agree with you that right there. Skip the roses, the chocolates, go straight for the brisket.
It's kind of amazing that I remember when the Star Telegram ran best of surveys, and the most romantic restaurant in Fort Worth was always, the readers would always vote Steak and Ale the most romantic restaurant. So I think back then steaks were considered most romantic. But I think now it may be brisket in Texas that seems to be the way to everyone's heart. Is there a restaurant in Texas that has like white tablecloths but serves brisket? What's the nicest? I'm hitting you with this question cold, but what's the nicest barbecue restaurant?
I wouldn't say it's the nicest. I mean, it's certainly one of my favorites. It doesn't have any white tablecloths, but Tejas Chocolate and Barbecue in Tomball, Texas, does put the chocolate and barbecue together on one menu. So they make their own bean to bar chocolate, so you can bring home a few chocolate truffles along with the brisket.
That's somewhere near Houston, right? That's it.
Right. It's northwest of Houston. Houston certainly claims it because, well, it's so good that Houston wants to claim it for their own as far as the barbecue scene goes.
Well, now, chocolate and barbecue, that sounds like a pretty good combination. I think one of our little places up here in Hyco or Grayford or Glen Rose, I think one of our little places ought to get on that gig too. You've been writing about barbecue in Texas Monthly now for 9 years. Is that right?
2013 is when I started, and this year I'm happy to say is my 20th year in Texas. So I feel like it's a good accomplishment.
8th year Texas Monthly, and you've been the barbecue snob on Twitter for 12 years, and so you brought all the wisdom and knowledge. You knew a lot about barbecue before you were in the magazine, and then the magazine got you to help with their ratings. You kind of helped put Dallas Fort Worth barbecue on the map, and then you have kind of ridden the crest of the barbecue craze that as Aaron Franklin and all the great Austin pitmasters have made brisket the great iconic Texas dish.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked since I started the job, is this the peak of Texas barbecue? For 8 years, I've been asked that. When is the bubble going to burst? And I mean, we're almost a year into this pandemic now, and I'm still amazed to see all the barbecue joints that continue to open, all the pop-ups that are, popping up across the state. I mean, there is no doubt that there is certainly still strength in the expansion of barbecue across Texas.
The barbecue places tell me that I think barbecue and pizza are the two restaurants that are doing well in this.
And tacos as well.
And tacos, that's right. They're doing 85-90% of last year's business. Some are doing more than they did last year. So, boy, the little barbecue places in Fort Worth that have drive-through windows that are in old Dairy Queens, all the little places like Off the Bone, which you put on the map very early on in Forest Hill, those little places, I see 2-block long lines to go to the railhead to go to the drive-through windows. So
yeah, I just stopped at Off the Bone this week actually, last week to try out their new smoked sausage. They started making their own sausage now and smoking their own recipes. So I had to stop by and try it.
All the places with drive-through windows are really kind of killing it. They're doing a fantastic job. Railhead's had a lot of great business too. I want to ask you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've had like an explosion, about 20 or so, I guess, craft barbecue places that have opened up here in Fort Worth recently.
Well, we have all the new little places, and Daniel, you've been to most of those. I mean, Goldie's, Smiley's, Panther City, Derek Allen's, Hurtado. I mean, there are people who love barbecue that have
Bricks, Smokeaholics. Yeah, I mean, you could just Zavala's in Grand Prairie if you want to take in the mid cities as well. I mean, it's pretty astounding. Not just the amount of it, but the quality of the barbecue that's coming out of Fort Worth and the mid cities right now. Dallas, I think for a while Dallas was ahead as far as like the new craft barbecue movement, but there just hasn't been nearly the amount opening up here recently.
Steve, you had something.
Dallas wasn't ahead. Dallas wasn't ahead.
Yeah, they were by quite a margin, but
Yeah, well,
Fort Worth has certainly overtaken them at this point.
Yeah, if you waited in line, in Deep Ellum, Dallas was ahead. But but if you didn't wait in line, there were a lot of other choices. You mentioned Smokeaholics. We've had Derek on, and that's what's been really striking is all the barbecue places that are kind of between Fort Worth and Arlington, and the small operators, and that somebody like Derek took and added better meats and craft styles to. And brought it to Evans Avenue and brought it to the neighborhood where you could, give something back. That's what Fort Worth has kind of put our own. It's not like Austin barbecue. It's barbecue for the common man, but
Right.
It's really good
Yeah.
barbecue.
I mean, what Panther City is doing, it's their own voice of barbecue. The same thing that Derek's doing at Smokeaholics. So yeah, it's fun to see not just a bunch of Austin copycats coming in.
Well, as long as we're talking about all the different places, we need to kind of talk about Heim, because Heim has, got the craft barbecue craze kicked off here with a trailer and then the expansions and I think Heim's been one of the big winners. The last couple of times I've been to Heim have been the best Heim dinners I've ever had, and I think that although they've expanded, that that they're trying to hold it together and keep the quality up, and the fact that you can go and get for I think $74, you can get a family pack and get 2 pounds of 2 meats and 2 big quarts of sides and eat off that, feed 6 or 8 people. And, I think Heim's really come into its own.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think are going to be one of the models to follow for anybody who's looking to expand. I mean, they've got 2 spots in Fort Worth. They just recently opened a location in Dallas. I know they're working on one in downtown Burleson. So the fact that they can, I mean, it's hard enough to open a second barbecue joint and still put out good barbecue at the second one, or not leave the first one back in the dust as all your A team heads over to the new one. So yeah, what they've done as far as maintaining quality, I think is something really special.
What's the new Mockingbird location in Dallas? Have you gone and tried that?
Yeah, I have gone. I couldn't help but get the bacon burn ends. And I tried a burger there that I hadn't tried before, which is their blue cheeseburger. And yeah, it's it's hard to beat their burgers as well as their barbecue.
That might be the place. If I wanted to have a nice barbecue dinner, I'd probably go to the patio in the River District Heim and spread out about 5 or 6 different choices and try to have in the setting sun and try to have that might be the place for a brisket Valentine's.
There you go.
I want to ask you about, are there any other local barbecue? I guess Barbecue on the Brazos is back open again in Crescent after moving to Fort Worth and back. And then we've got the new buzz in Fort Worth of, I guess Lou Lambert will be reopening Roy Pope Barbecue with some of that brisket that he was selling down in Clear Fork. And you heard Lady in the Pit is reopening. They've got a location on East Lancaster near Texas Wesleyan University. They'll be opening back up. So we've got we've got more to look forward to.
Well, and as far as the new barbecue boom, let's not leave out Big Boys over on the east side. They opened up right off of 820, and I mean, talk about some bravery, opening up a restaurant in June of last year and doing it with a signature item of smoked chicken salad. But that smoked chicken salad is pretty amazing.
Well, that's a great location. It's another drive-through where you don't even have to get out of your car, and you can smoked chicken salad is kind of a Fort Worth phenomenon. Carpenter's really established it. Katrina, we're going to have her on the Eat Speed podcast too, and they've done such a great job. And then Big Boys has done a fantastic job. Smoked chicken in general has had a big year. Robinson's has been selling out of his Kansas City style smoked chickens, and but that smoked chicken salad at Big Boys, that's for everyone who's asking. That's on Lancaster. It's on Brentwood Stair. I'm sorry, it's on Brentwood Stair, just off Loop 820 in Bridgewood. Big Boys smoked chicken salad. That's a sandwich or a plate, right?
He said he'll give it to you any way you want it. You want it a sandwich, you want it by the pint, you want it as part of your combo plate with some ribs or brisket, he'll do that too.
Quart, bucket, however you want it. That'll be good.
Yes.
The small entrepreneurs have really made it here. Well, I mentioned Robinson's and his Kansas City style stuff. The Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and every time the Chiefs are in the big game, people start arguing about Texas barbecue and Kansas City barbecue. Daniel, I want to warn you, our bosses here are from like Missouri and Kansas, and probably someone who edits this probably is somewhere in Kansas too. Is there anything to say about Kansas City
Well,
barbecue?
let's say that they are fueled by somebody who grew up on Texas barbecue. So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he didn't grow up on any Kansas City barbecue. So, let's give that a notch for Texas.
Does Patrick like Stanley's better? I haven't really seen what Patrick's barbecue preference is.
He hasn't really said a favorite in Texas. Yeah, he's I guess played that one close to the vest.
About it, that he's probably being very delicate about which barbecue he prefers. Well, Robinson's is the one I talk about here when somebody asks about Kansas City, because the founder of Robinson's used to work up there at one of the iconic barbecue restaurants, and so they have this completely different sauce, completely different style. But would you tell people a little bit about what Kansas City barbecue is and why it's different?
Yeah, well, as you said, sauce, like that is one of the big differences. There's a lot in common between Texas barbecue and Kansas City barbecue when it comes to the menu. So you'll find brisket and ribs. You'll also find, you'll find sausage too, which is one of those places that you just don't find it find in a lot of barbecue styles outside of Texas. You'll find all those things, but one of the things you'll find that really defines Kansas City barbecue is the burnt ends. And the burnt ends are usually the fatty part of the brisket. It started out as traditionally being the very ends of the brisket with those burnt edges, those really smoky edges. And now they've become so popular, it essentially means chunks of the fatty end of the brisket. So if you're in Kansas City ordering brisket, sliced brisket anyway, you're generally going to be disappointed, because if you want some fatty brisket, it's going to be in the burnt ends. If you order sliced brisket, you're just going to get the lean stuff, unless you go to a place like Heart Barbecue, which is it's a funny story about the way they started, but they're doing Texas style barbecue in Kansas City, and for my money, it's certainly the best brisket you can get there if you're looking for Texas style barbecue in Kansas City.
Yeah, and I like Robinson's here, but I wouldn't recommend Robinson's for brisket. I'd recommend it for particularly for his spicy ribs, or for the tips, or for the whole hickory smoked chicken that's got his Kansas City rub and Kansas City sauce. That it really does a better job with chicken. He worked at Gates, so he worked at Gates in Kansas City. And
over here in Dallas, we've got 18th and Vine as well, and they're a Kansas City style. We were talking about fancy barbecue joints earlier. This is one of those. I don't think they have any tablecloths on the table, but they have a full wait staff and a full bar. But they also have really great burnt ends that they serve.
Daniel, what's going to happen next in barbecue? Where does Texas go from here? People have gone from, oh, I've got craft brisket, to no, now I've got, prime brisket, or akaushi, or the different kinds of beef. What's the next shtick that people can do to try to get attention?
Well, I think one of the things we talked about earlier is a good way, which is really for a lot of these cities to start to get their own voice for the barbecue they're doing. I talked in the past several years about a new style that we have in Texas called Big City Barbecue, and that's because so many of these places in the large cities were doing very similar style barbecue. Putting everything out on the tray, really focusing on using high quality brisket. Essentially doing the Franklin method for their brisket, maybe a little bit of a sweet glaze on their ribs, but with places like Hurtado in Arlington and Panther City and Smokeaholics, like we've talked about, it's giving Fort Worth a bit of a voice of their own for the style of barbecue they have, and I think that's what we're going to find in going forward in a lot of different big cities across Texas. But one of the things that certainly isn't slowing down is putting good barbecue into tortillas. BBQ Tacos. I laughed. There was a press release put out for a new barbecue joint in the suburbs of Dallas, and in it they said, we're doing something completely unique. We're putting barbecue and tacos on the same menu. Nobody's ever done it before. I just howled with laughter.
Brisket taco. I remember the late Dan Jenkins, who was my idol as a food writer for the things he wrote. I remember him snorting once about brisket tacos. Whoever put brisket in a taco? And but by then brisket tacos were already pretty popular and pretty iconic. You could find brisket tacos just about any barbecue place that tried to capitalize on Taco Tuesday started running Tuesday specials, and so from there it just caught on.
That's something you're not going to find in Kansas City.
There are no brisket. There are no Taco Tuesday brisket tacos. Brisket tacos. Some of the places like Sammy's, some of the old places will tell you that they'd kind of just been doing the same old for years and years. And when they started doing brisket tacos, they brought in a whole new crowd. And they, from there they've started getting a better tortilla. They go to the panaderia down the street and get house-made tortillas, and it just gets more and more popular. I know this is statewide, but here with Hurtado, Panther City, and a lot of the other influence on other places, the combination of the flavors of Mexico and the flavors of Texas barbecue and brisket, and that combination, has really caught on both in the meats and the salsas and the things you see.
Well, yeah, and I think so many barbecue sauces are really designed to go well with ribs and go with pork and even chicken, but not many barbecue sauces are designed to go with beef, with brisket, because so often we eat our brisket without sauce on it here. But the salsas, I think, by and large, go with brisket better than most barbecue sauces I've had. If you've been to Zavala's and had that green sauce and dip some brisket into it, I mean, it's a really great combination, getting the onion flavors and the peppers and, just not having a sweet sauce drowned in your brisket.
Yeah, I think Lambert's going to have some of that too at Roy Pope. Steve is the real pit master on this call, between the two of us. Steve, go ahead. Do you have some barbecue topics on your mind?
Well, I was curious. We've talked about Kansas City and the Super Bowl and barbecue. Does Florida have any barbecue?
Florida does have barbecue. Along the coast, you'll find a lot of smoked fish places. In the Tampa area, Dr. Barbecue's restaurant is in the Tampa area. Now, I haven't been there. I haven't been able to try it, but with a name like Dr. Barbecue, at least something's got to be good, right?
Yeah. And have you ever been to like the Royal or whatever, the big barbecue in Kansas?
Yeah. I've been to the American Royal. Actually, the one of my first big road trips outside of Texas was to go to the American Royal, become a certified barbecue judge and a judge at the American Royal. Mm-hmm. Now, at the time, I was a bit of a novice in barbecue, and I really thought that going to eat at the American Royal and sitting down at a table at a big competition like that meant that I was going to be eating some of the best barbecue I've ever eaten in my life. And a few hours later and a much fuller stomach later, I left realizing that, competition barbecue, just because you win a lot of trophies doesn't mean that the barbecue itself is better than what you can get in a restaurant.
Well, it's a little different than what you get at restaurants too. I mean, the competition itself. Yeah. I'm actually a certified Kansas City barbecue judge, also with the idea that I was going to be able to eat a lot of barbecue whenever the barbecue competitions came through. It was like a little, and it turns out just eating little pieces of, and clean your palate with crackers and trying the next one and stuff. But you do get a lot of barbecue at the competitions.
Yeah, I judged the Jack once as well in Tennessee, and I just remember at the end of it, you're not supposed to talk amongst the table as judges, right? But you can talk at the end after you've already judged. And everybody got done with the ribs, and there was an older gentleman sitting to my right who had obviously judged a lot of competitions. And we got done, and we turned in our scorecards, and he's like, "Tastes like a lot of people went to the same rib school," because pretty much every rib had the exact same flavor.
Uh-huh.
Daniel, what's your favorite out of brisket, ribs, and sausage, or is there something else? I just assumed it'd be part of the Trinity.
Whew, man. Well, pork steaks, if you're going outside the Trinity. I mean, I love a good pork steak, and I'm on a bit of a mission, I guess, to try and, I don't know if we need to eliminate pulled pork in Texas, but if you eat pulled pork from a pork shoulder versus a good pork steak from that same pork shoulder, the pork shoulder for me is going to win every time. To me, it just tastes more Texan. I think it's easier to serve as well. It doesn't dry out once you start pulling on it like a whole pork shoulder. So I really love pork steak, a big thick one. And I love to cook them in the backyard as well. But as far as the Trinity goes, I mean, there's so much variation in ribs. One of the things that I don't know if it's a downside about the movement of really incredible brisket, but there's just not much variation in it. Once you hit the top, like once you hit the great stuff, once you hit that top 10% of brisket around the state, all of it ends up pretty much tasting the same, which is great, but it's all pretty much the same. And in sausage, it's just the opposite. You can get so much variation in flavor. Going to Hurtado and trying the sausage that they've got there, Zavala's with their pizza pepper sausage, Goldie's.
Little places like Longoria's that make their own sausage. Anybody that makes a little house-made sausage, it's going to be better than a commercial sausage.
And so seeing a place like Off the Bone, who's been, cooking somebody else's sausage for decades, is now making their own. It's a lot better. It's just more fun to go eat there. One more great thing on the menu.
Daniel, is there? We named off a lot of new places. I know Goldie's south of Kennedale has. They have some Austin folks. I know Smiley's has the barbecue people. I mean, have we left out any other newbies that we need to talk about?
Man, I'm trying to think. I mean, we've talked plenty about Smokeaholics, but it is like they're a different restaurant on Tuesdays when they do their stuffed turkey legs. It's the only day that they do the turkey legs, and it's the only thing that they have that day. So that's certainly like its own restaurant. We talked about Big Boys. I don't have my map in front of me.
Restaurant. Jube's is the other restaurant that does stuffed turkey legs. Jube's, and I believe that the soul food restaurant in Bedford, I believe the soul food restaurant on Brown Trail in Bedford is doing smoked turkey legs too. Rosacco Bailey's, Rosacco's and Jube's are both kind of making their name for stuffed turkey legs. So.
Yeah, I did stop in at Rosacco's to get one on their turkey leg day, but I guess their shipment hadn't come in. But yeah, down at Jube's, he'll also, if you call ahead a day before, he'll stuff a whole chicken with that dirty rice and smoke it.
Yeah, Jube's is it's on Edgewood Terrace. It's in Stop 6. It's become a place to stop for people on their way from Fort Worth going home to Arlington or back. It's become real popular. Well, thanks for running down a lot of this barbecue. I guess if anybody seriously thought they were going to get Valentine's advice, you need to look online at startelegram.com/eatsbeat. You'll find the serious Valentine wrap-ups. Bird Cafe is coming back for a weekend and serving Bird Cafe Valentine's dinner out of the Flying Saucer. You'll find that on startelegram.com. And you'll find that in the stockyards, besides all the nicer restaurants like Provender Hall, that Risky's Steakhouse has a Valentine's special, 2 steaks and calf fries for your Valentine's. So you can read all about that on startelegram.com/eatsbeat. And Daniel, what should people read now in Texas Monthly, and what's your next publication you'd like people to see?
Well, I mean, I do have a story out now about the smoked chicken specifically in Fort Worth, funny enough, leading off with the good news that Lady in the Pit's going to be back. And we have got an article in this current issue, about the barbecue and chocolate at Tejas down in Tomball, and a lot about the similarities in the way that bean to bar chocolate is made versus a good smoked brisket. A lot of the same principles are in play when roasting cocoa beans versus smoking a brisket. And I'm always working on different stories. I've got Oaked here in Dallas. I'll be doing a review on them soon. A new place that has opened up, and headed down to Waco tomorrow to do some filming with Guest Family Barbecue, and I'll be eating at a few places around Waco.
Well, read all about it in Barbecue Monthly magazine. Texas Monthly magazine, and TexasMonthly.com. So follow Daniel Vaughn in Texas Monthly or at Barbecue Snob on Twitter. I'm Eatsbeat on Twitter, and Steve is TX Weekend Chef. And until next time, be back with us on the Star Telegram Eats Beat. I'm Bud Kennedy
and Steve Wilson.